Welcome, everyone, to the So Long Saul celebration. I'm Jody Broughton, Development and Marketing Director for North Cascades Institute. I've been fortunate enough to work with Saul for the last 7 years. We're thrilled to have over 200 of you here tonight to honor Saul's vision for North Cascades Institute and his leadership over the last 35 years, and to wish him well in his retirement. We would, of course, prefer to be celebrating Saul's many accomplishments in person. Yet there are benefits to having this gathering virtually, including being together with people who know Saul from all over the country and recording this event for some to watch later. Special thanks to Veritas Media here in Bellingham for a partial donation of this beautiful space and their expert help with the production. Tonight, we'll walk through time, with each section having a keynote speaker and videos from a wide variety of people to tell the intertwined stories of Saul's career and the evolution of North Cascades Institute. We'll share some fun tributes and poems too, and let Saul express his gratitude. And like we do for every Institute program, I first want to acknowledge the Coast Salish people who have stewarded the land where I am since time immemorial. I offer this acknowledgement as a first step in honoring their relationship with the land that we share, as well as a call toward further learning and action in support of our Indigenous neighbors. We'll start this evening with Saul's mother, Maggie. She will share memories of when her son first got a wild idea for an environmental education nonprofit in the early 1980s when he was a backcountry ranger in the North Cascades.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Saul's mom, Maggie Weisberg. I'm 97, and I never thought I'd live long enough to be at your retirement celebration. Most people here know you only as an adult. I want to share some things about you growing up. We started family camping when you were 6. Do you remember camping in Algonquin National Park in that primitive campground with pit toilets and an old water pump? We put up our tents and stayed for a month. You and Mark ran free, doing things you told us about years later that made us cringe. I'm sure that had something to do with your love of nature and wild places. You were a good student in high school, but not an outstanding one. You worked hard at what interested you, and you got by with the rest. You volunteered at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, taking care of the birds of prey. I remember Stuart, the red-tailed hawk that you and your girlfriend raised from an egg to be part of the museum's programs. When you went to Antioch College, it was hard for us to see where your education would take you. I know you changed from an English major to a biology major. You loved birds, wrote poetry, spent a lot of time rock climbing, and developed strong friendships. Then you moved to Washington in 1976 and worked as an oyster farmer, tree planter, fire lookout, and climbing ranger as you got your master's in biology at Western Washington University. In the summer of 1981, you wrote to tell us that you, Tom, Ed, and Tim were starting the Shuckson Institute, a wilderness education school in the North Cascades. Your dad and I thought, wow, that's an ambitious plan for a bunch of kids with no experience running an organization or raising money. But we were supportive, thinking it would be a good learning experience on the way to a real job. Little did we realize that you were way ahead of us. You had found your niche and you hung on as Shuckson became North Cascades Institute. You knew how and when to accept help, find partners, and to admit you didn't know it all. You were smart enough to find and listen to the right people who shared your values and your vision. Who would have thought that a skinny kid with long hair, a bushy beard, and wild ideas about living in the wilderness would become the executive director of a wonderful, successful nonprofit? Saul, I'm proud of you. I'm proud to be your mother. You've never lost sight of the ideals and passions that first motivated you. I look forward to being part of this next stage of your life.
Your mom's awesome. Thank you so much, Maggie. North Cascades Institute was founded in 1986 by Saul and Tom Fleischner, his friend and coworker at North Cascades National Park. After a few years getting the new organization off the ground, Tom moved on to other endeavors, including being a professor at Prescott College, starting the Natural History Institute, and publishing several books of essays, including Nature Love Medicine. Tom joins us from Arizona to share memories of the early days.
Greetings. It's great to be part of Saulapalooza here tonight. Saul and I have been friends for close to 40 years. And to the point of tonight's event, I'll harken back to the early 80s, as Maggie just did, when we, along with 3 other friends, began to develop a vague but compelling notion of starting a school. After some years of contemplating with increasing seriousness what this might really mean, this notion coalesced, as Maggie said, into the Shuckson Institute, a collaborative vision from our group which ultimately winnowed down to just Saul and I. Just this week happened upon our original flyer, which I don't know if you can see very well, but it was a humble but earnest beginning. Long story short, our compelling vision did not match the meager financial realities of our lives at that time, and we had to let the vision go. But 1 year later, John Reynolds, the innovative new superintendent of North Cascades National Park, found one of those humble flyers in his office where it had been unceremoniously discarded by his predecessor, and summoned us in to see what it would take. Within a few weeks, we pulled together our first year's programs, incorporated as the North Cascades Institute, and sent 10,000 copies of this, also just found this week, the original catalog, out into the world. And lo and behold, people started to actually register for these programs, and suddenly we were real. I feel very proud about being part of the visionary task force that helped create this wonderful organization. And I think it's fair to say that the initial liftoff actually required the synergy and mild audaciousness which only close collaborative friendship can provide. But long, long ago, NCI transcended my role. And you, Saul, my dear friend, have done a truly magnificent job of leading the Institute into true greatness. And great not just as a place modeling state-of-the-art environmental education, as NCI does, but as importantly as an excellent place to work. One thing more, we walked and talked this vision into coherence, and then this vision into breathing reality. I mean that literally. We walked the land and took our most important cues directly there. This organization was born of the backcountry, not the boardroom. You continue to walk this terrain, and you continue to listen to this remarkable place, even as you've become fully and appropriately comfortable in the boardrooms. NCI was born of, from, and in the place, not as some pedagogical abstraction dropped into some academic blank space. That wild groundedness, combined with your general brilliance, creativity, and quick wit, has kept the initial passion very much alive. I have so much gratitude for the way you, along with so many of your wonderful colleagues, many who are here tonight, have manifested and indeed transcended our original vision. Felicidades on a job so well done. We will walk together very soon again.
My name is John Reynolds. I was the superintendent of North Cascades National Park from 1984 to 1988. One day, in a management team meeting, I brought up the idea that perhaps we could work to create an educational institution associated with the park. The idea being that one of the greatest contributions that a national park could make to the nation and to the visitors was to provide educational opportunities about the natural and cultural resources related to the park and its ecosystem. The management team heartily agreed. The next day, I received a call from Bill Lester. Bill was in charge of the backcountry from up in Marble Mound, and his boss, Elaine Hounsel, had been in the management team meeting and told Bill about it. Bill told me that two of his seasonal rangers that he used to manage the backcountry had had a similar proposal a couple of years before and had presented it to the previous superintendent, who had rejected the idea. Bill asked if he could bring the two seasonal rangers down to Cedar Woolley to discuss the proposal. I said, of course they could, and a few days later they were in my office. Saul and Tom presented their proposal, which they had in a nicely bound little document, and then the four of us discussed it in some depth. Following the discussion, Bill made an extraordinary offer. Bill offered me the opportunity to use Saul and Tom to go to work to create the Institute if I was seriously decided to create such an organization. Blown away, I heartily accepted. Bill also promised that he would make sure the backcountry was well managed, which of course it was. A few days later, Saul and Tom started working at headquarters in Cedar Woolley. They worked with John Miles, who had been their professor at Western Washington University and their advisor on the original proposal. And very soon, shortly thereafter, they incorporated the North Cascades Institute with the state of Washington. And the rest is history. There are several heroes in this story. Of course, the two biggest heroes are Tom and Saul, who were magnificent and worked very, very hard, very diligently, very practically, with great vision to bring their idea to fruition.
Hi, my name is John Jarvis. I arrived at North Cascades National Park in 1985 as the first chief of natural and cultural resources. I was focused initially on building a strong science program and trying to figure out how to protect the resources of such a large and complicated place. John Reynolds was the park superintendent, and he had stationed two young rangers out in a trailer behind headquarters to create an institute. I had no idea what that was, but over time, with coaching from Saul and Tom, I began to appreciate that they were creating a way to build a new generation of stewards of North Cascades. 1 year into my job, I was assigned to be the lead negotiator for the Park Service in the relicensing of the Skagit River hydroelectric project, which incorporates the 3 dams and the river impoundments within Ross Lake National Recreation Area. The enabling legislation prevented the Park Service from advocating their removal, but did not prevent us from asking for mitigation. So this work occupied my days, my weeks, my months for over 3 years. At some point in the negotiations, I realized that if I was very specific in what we wanted, Seattle City Light would seriously consider it as mitigation. Frankly, they were open to just about anything that did not affect their dam operations. So I met with Saul Weisberg and asked, what do you want for the Institute? His ask was quite simple. He wanted a brand new campus, full funding for operations, vehicles, utilities, furnishings, and oh yeah, an endowment as well. I said, okay, let's go for it. And I remember vividly Saul joining me for some of the meetings that I attended in Seattle, and his job was to really sell the vision. And I could see that it was connecting with the Seattle City Light negotiating team. The rest basically is history. The utility bought out the old failing concessionaire, built the beautiful campus of the Institute, and has been providing essential funding for the last 20 years. That said, the Institute vision, its success, and its stellar reputation is a direct result of Saul Weisberg's leadership over that same period. As the 18th director of the National Park Service, I had the opportunity to work with many of our education partners that provide programs within our national park system. When asked which ones are the exemplars, I always pointed to North Cascades Institute, and especially to Saul's leadership. He, in turn, was always willing to help others who were trying to do something similar in their parks. Today, there are literally thousands of alumni of the programs of NCI, and with them, they carry a little bit of Saul's passion, poetry, and devotion to this extraordinary part of the world. Thank you, Saul, and the very best to you in your retirement.
Hi, Saul. This is Chuck Luckman. I worked for you and with you from 1992 to 97 during phase 2 and phase 3 of NCI in the trailer and the warehouse. One of my favorite memories is the beautiful catalogs we produced every year of the field seminar programs. Still kind of blows my mind that every year we did over 60 field seminars around North Cascades National Park and the greater ecosystem. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more paddling with you during your retirement before we reach phase 7 of NCI when we all return to the Garden of Eden. Anyway, take care. Love you a lot. God bless.
Hi, my name is Jim Chu. I work for the Forest Service International Programs. In my previous job, I worked on the Mount Baker-Snoqualmie National Forest as the Skagit Wild and Scenic River Manager and had many opportunities to work with Saul and NCI, and they were all very, very good experiences. I loved working on the Eagle Watcher program with Saul and the Institute because it helped us solve a problem. We didn't have people on the river to do education interpretation for the 10,000 visitors that would come up to the Skagit River each year. So with the help of Saul and the Institute, we were able to recruit 50 to 100 volunteers, put them at different locations throughout the winter to meet with the 10,000 visitors that would come to the river. So we would teach them about bald eagle biology and ecology, but most importantly, we'd have them viewing bald eagles in a responsible way so as not to impact them during their time on the Skagit during the winter. Another project that we worked on with Saul was the Mountain Steward program. And this is a program where we wanted to train people who use Mount Baker more responsibly. We wanted them to use the leave no trace ethic. So we trained volunteers to help work with the public to do that. There was some apprehension at first by the volunteers and also others that we would be sending these people out as law enforcement. No, we wanted them to do education, and that's what they did. But I think the project that I'm most pleased working on with Saul is our outreach programs to diverse communities. I asked Saul if they'd be interested in working with the International District Housing Alliance at the time. And this was a program where we brought youth out to the Skagit River and taught them about bald eagles. But the youth were teaching the elders in the community. So they were doing it in Chinese and Vietnamese. So we coined this as intergenerational learning. So I think that all these projects have really helped the Forest Service do our job better. And I want to thank Saul and the staff at NCI for helping us do our job better. I want to congratulate you, Saul, on your upcoming retirement. It's been a lot of fun working with you over the years. I want to see you paddling on Lake Padden, and maybe one day our ski to sea team will be able to beat your team. Congratulations and good luck. Thanks. Bye.
Hi, Saul. Libby here, remembering the days of old. NCI started for me in 1986 when you and Tom invited me to teach the bald eagles and salmon of the Skagit class. Folks endured 2 days of cold and rain back in those early days to learn in January. In summer, I started teaching nature observation through field journals, illustrated in the sunny Methow Valley. Potluck dinners made the field classes and camping big fun. Soon you and I were teaching together and trying to cram everything we knew into one class. Remember how many books we could stuff in our oversized fanny packs? The Complete Naturalist was first. I loved teaching and taking classes at Hart's Pass in the cacophony of wildflower color. We pushed through snow on that nerve-wracking road to get up high for early trolleus, red paintbrush, bog orchids, and elephant head in those meadows all abuzz. Hermit thrushes sang, bluebirds nested on Slate Peak, Clark's nutcrackers spread the seed of whitebark pines. There were taxonomic keys to study, fast hill-topping butterflies to catch, and circles of participants eager to share ideas, poems, and dark night skies. We dig deep into our collective library, circled around on camp chairs and picnic benches. Paring down the Complete Naturalist to Wings was definitely a good move. Later, there were elder hostels and over a dozen spring naturalist retreats. 4 days around Sun Mountain with Bob Pyle and Tia, Art Krukeberg and Reiner, Rusty, you and Shelley and the kids, and 40 eager naturalists. We knew all the nooks and crannies on the hill, where to find green hair streaks, sharp-tailed grouse, horned lizards, 4 species of swallowtails, and puddles full of blues. How about that time we got away to Costa Rica with a big bus of NCI buddies? Morphos winging by, hummers in the cloud forest, hot, humid trails, jabberoos and Jacobins, lifers and chocolate and monkeys, oh my! We shared writers' retreats with Tim McNulty and Bill Dietrich, Bob Pyle, Ann Zwinger, and Barbara Kingsolver. Times changed when NCI grew to fill the Learning Center, but I love the memories of teaching in the field, especially with you and small groups of curious people who shared our love of nature and became lifelong friends. Back then we had wings, lifting our hearts and ideas, our young bodies, our optimism. Now there's a body of work well done. NCI looks to a bright future, and you have a well-earned retirement ahead. Don't step far from what brought us to NCI in the first place. I look forward to shared birds and bugs, posies, and the words to poems not yet imagined. A long, healthy, happy retirement to you and to Shelley, and big thanks for all you did for us, for NCI.
Vivid descriptions. Thank you so much, Libby. Really appreciate that. And it's inspiring to hear about Saul's early days and the founding of the Institute from those who were actually there. And as most of you know, Saul loves poetry and writes his own, which I know he looks forward to doing more of in retirement. We couldn't properly celebrate you, Saul, tonight without including poetry in the mix. So now I welcome the first of 3 featured poets, Robert Michael Pyle.
Hello, Brother Saul. Big congratulations on a magnificent finish to an unduplicated and absolutely essential career. Thank you for everything you've brought me and brought to everyone else, especially getting into the field so much over the last 30 years or so. This is for you, Saul, on your way out into the field yourself. The butterflies of Billy Meadows. It's Northeast Oregon, but you'll recognize all the species I know because you're a fine lepidopterist yourself. The butterflies of Billy Meadows. First, of course, the swallowtails catch the eye. Papilio Rutilus, Multicaudatus, and Parnassus smintheus, Apollo's alter ego. And then the whites flit by, Pieris occidentalis and Pieris rapi, cabbage butterflies even here. Anthocharis with her orange juice tips, and the butterpats of sulfurs, Coleus interior, their bright pink edges, their lime green eyes. Of the blues, Euphalotes occupy the buckwheat mounds, Icaricia the lupin, named for Icarus, that wax-winged wannabe. Blebius sepiolus, greenish blue, Blebius lupini, spangled blue, and Glaucopsyche, that means blue soul. Piasus and Ligdamus, the arrowhead and silvery blues. Pyrgus communis, skipping on checkered wings, just looks blue. Lycina heteronia, shines bluer than any blue, though it's really a copper. Like Mariposa, flashing purple in the sun, Nivalis of the lilac edge, or Edith's, named for her finder's lover. And the browns, Cercionus pegula and Etus, O ye wood nymphs of summer, plus their fair sister, Eurybia epipsidia, flitting cinnamon and chocolate through alpine hellebores by Billy Creek, Boloria epithor, violet and rust, in bog with ochre ringlets. Vanessa the lady flies by like a cinder on the wind, Erinus the witch, black as a burned-out coal. The anglewing, known here as Zephyr, the tortoiseshell of fiery rims, and blue-flecked Antiopa, the morning cloak, all brilliant above, all hide behind dark rags. Look, here come the checker spots and crescents, Physiotes mellita and Pulchella the beauty, Euphydrius, lovely dryad, Colon, and Eve Anicia Vesii, named for Portland dryad Agnes Vesey, who caught Oregon silver spots in Ocean Park in 16. Now all these silver spots at their violets, Spiraea hydaspi, Callippi, Zerini, Coronus, Hesperus, Leto, and Mormonia, one pair of Mormon fritillaries, in copula, of course. Lastly, at Buckhorn Lookout, Danaeus plexippus, one lone monarch, beating its way back north, high above Imnaha. Now, head out to the field, Saul, you and Shelley, and have a wonderful life that you've so much deserved. I love you.
Hi, I'm Chuck Robinson. I knew Saul as a regular customer in our bookstore, a well-read, intensely curious customer. And that's where I also met John Miles, who served on NCI's board and as chair for many years. I was so privileged to be asked to join the board just about 2 years after Saul and his friends had founded NCI. And I spent about 15 years on the board working with some really great people. Saul's vision was so clear in those early days, and NCI was so well organized that it was hard for me to realize it really was so new. That vision has never wavered, and Saul's dedication to the organization has been so steady. From the very beginning, he engaged others and built long-lasting partnerships that continue to serve NCI today. Innovation has been the key to the growth and success of NCI, and that was led and driven by Saul and the groundbreaking steps that the organization has taken. From conducting mountain school in Korean surplus tents to building a state-of-the-art learning center and creating exciting new programs, Saul has inspired staff, participants, and donors to take a leap. And now he's taking the big leap and retiring. Saul has built a foundation that will serve NCI long into the future. Here's to a great new adventure, Saul. Thanks for all you've done for NCI.
Hi, this is Nan McKay. I am a past chair of the North Cascades Institute board, and I've known Saul for almost as long as Saul has been the executive director of North Cascades Institute. Our relationship goes back to work we did together for the Environmental Education Association of Washington, work that we did years ago on Puget Sound, and a curriculum for the Skagit Valley. So it's been a wonderful, long friendship and relationship. Saul has run a magnificent organization and done a wonderful job of building something that was just an idea into something that has served thousands of people over 35 years. I wish Saul all the best and am hoping that his retirement is as interesting and productive and rewarding as his time with the Institute has been. Thank you, Saul, so much for everything.
I'm John Miles. I've worked with Saul for the past 35 years in one way or another. He's become a great friend, and I consider him to be my most valued colleague in my career as an environmental educator. When Superintendent John Reynolds called me from North Cascades National Park and asked if I'd serve on the board of this new organization that these two rangers were figuring out how to start, I said, oh, sure. I really love the North Cascades. I've been hiking and climbing in them for a couple of decades, and I thought this was a terrific idea. So I went to the board meeting, and next thing I knew, I was the chair and served in that role for the first 8 years of the organization. Working with Saul has been a pure delight all these years. He and I have taught together. We've gone into the North Cascades together with students. I've watched him catch butterflies and do all kinds of great things with young people. And I've come to admire him in so many ways, as well as love him as a friend. He has taken this organization from nothing, really. It started with two guys, he and Tom Fleischner, with their files in a box, going from desk to desk that happened to be available in the National Park Service office to the nationally known and admired organization that it is today. He's a terrific administrator, a visionary, a good poet and writer, just a great all-around guy. And the organization that he has created and nurtured, along with all the other great folks that have helped him over the years, has really become a great leader in the field of environmental education, and particularly environmental education in a national park setting. So, Saul, I hope your future continues to be as fruitful and rewarding as this past 35 years has been. And I know after your graduation from this phase of your career, you'll go on to do a great many more wonderful things. And I look forward to continuing on the journey with you. Thank you so much.
Kindred soul, your work isn't finished. I know you will continue to follow the green song of wild things down the trail, and I hope all of us, your friends, are fortunate enough to stay with you on this lifetime journey of learning and embracing the magic. Great gratitude to your mom and dad and Shelley and your kids for being your most important teachers, and endless thanks to you, Saul. Ed and our girls join me in wishing great joy to you and Shelley as you go forward.
Hello, Saul. This is your buddy, Jerry Cook. Saul, I've known you since the day you came to North Cascades National Park as a seasonal backcountry ranger. I continued working at the park for a 44-year career. You, after a few years of park work, came up with this harebrained idea to start this new outdoor education school. I can still remember coming to visit you at the back of the parking lot at Cedar Woolley in a ratty trailer that was NCI's first private office. Who would ever have imagined what an amazing story was about to unfold? Saul, you were bold and thought big. You were never afraid of the unknown and embraced change. For me personally, teaching classes with you, Saul, doing all the work with the youth groups, as well as being a board member, has exposed me to a diverse and interesting group of people that have permanently and positively impacted my very core.
I'm Carter McBride. I believe I am a very good friend of Saul's. I call him my friend. And I just happen to be a member of the board of directors of NCI. I have to say that Saul and I met about approximately 5, 6, 7 years ago under deep conversations about what he was looking for as far as the future of NCI, some of the areas of development, and I believe we developed a tremendous opportunity between both of us, with me being accepted as a member of the board of directors. With that, I have to say my life has been changed dramatically for the better to be a friend of Saul's, and I wish him well in his next phase of life. I will not use that term retirement, because that's just another word for getting some other things done that you haven't done yet. Congratulations, Saul. I love you.
Great to hear from board members. We certainly would not be where we are today if it were not for the past and present board members. Thank you all for your service. One of the biggest evolutionary steps in our story was when the Institute began to offer educational programs not just for adults, but for young people, the next generation. I'm happy to welcome Tracy Johannesson, who worked for the Institute in several capacities between 1991 and 2017. Most recently as our education director. She and Wendy Shearer were instrumental in starting and growing programs like Mountain School, which just turned 30 years old. Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, Saul. Hi, everyone. Well, back in 1991, when I was hired for a 3-month seasonal position as the first Mountain School coordinator, the 5th staff member of the Institute at that time, my job was to camp with students and their teachers in the North Cascades, and little did I know that I would spend the next over 2 decades working with Saul at NCI. And what a great privilege that was. What an honor to be able to speak to Saul's legacy this evening. Thank you for asking me. So reflecting on the earliest days of mountain school, it is pretty amazing to think back to the tents along the Skagit River, the field kitchen with the tarps and the Coleman two-burner stoves, later the MASH tent, garbage bag rain ponchos, the partnership with the National Park and the Forest Service that made it all work, and all those teachers who kept bringing their students to participate, despite often spending 3 days camping in the rain. So over the years, as mountain school program grew and teachers kept signing up, they consistently told us that the reason they saw such value in the program was the social and emotional learning they saw taking place in their students that resulted from spending time as a group in nature. So thanks to Saul and the founders, it's so cool to hear from Tom tonight, and the board of directors, thank you. The vision from the very beginning was a curriculum that would be focused on the natural and cultural history of the North Cascades and the Skagit watershed. I remember being so inspired, Saul, by your direction and example of letting the place teach, to allow for discovery, to honor different ways of knowing. It was important to all of us that the lessons be interdisciplinary, that we include science and the arts, and that we would invite students to explore the relationship between nature and culture. I grew so much as a teacher. From this program base, our work with and for schools deepened throughout the 90s and early 2000s, and we wrote curriculum guides and offered workshops for teachers and developed a model for day-long field trip programs, developed volunteer stewardship programs with the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, which Jim talked about. Saul, your collaborative nature, your fearless leadership, and can-do attitude made things happen. And the Institute grew at a steady but impressive pace. And because of the response and your effective leadership, it just kept on growing. Let it grow. That same year we started Mountain School, we also started the summer youth programs, with the first iteration being Mountain Camp, which later evolved into Ross Lake Canoe Camp, precursors for the summer youth leadership adventures. Mountain School continued to evolve as well and became much more sustainable. And when I think back on those program evolutions, what really stands out now is how much we, as in the big we, learned by doing them, how much we shared, how much we made an effort to listen and endeavored to respond to changing needs, how we managed to persevere through the many challenges, and how great the rewards were of doing the real work of serving and connecting people and place. I am so proud and thankful that 30 years later, the Institute's summer and youth programs, school and summer youth programs, are still going strong. We need them now as much as ever, and maybe even more. This is also a good opportunity to thank the community of people who've supported the Institute's youth programs over all these years. It does take a village. In closing, I just wanted to ask us to take a collective moment to think about those fifth graders that are now parents, those interns and graduate students that are now teachers and leaders, and the tens of thousands, literally, of kids who have tossed a sprig of western red cedar into a campfire in the middle of the North Cascades wilderness and wished that Mountain School would be there forever. Thank you, Saul, for your dedication to that vision. And thank you for keeping it fun. And thank you for being my mentor, my colleague, and my friend all these years. I know you're going to keep on learning, keep on teaching. And so, as a wise man once said to me, take time to celebrate your accomplishments. Here's to you, Saul. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.
Hi, my name is Wendy Scherer. I live in Bellingham. I'm a neighbor of Saul Weisberg's. And I was a teacher back in 1990 when I got a call to work at NCI for a one-year grant-funded project. It was about wilderness education. Well, that project turned into an 8-year job for me, with many, many different projects that we worked to grow and to create in the education programs for schools at North Cascades Institute. Some of the things I'm most proud of is starting Mountain School, and that was a pilot project in 1990 when I was hired that turned into a big project in 1991 when we hired Tracy Johansson with a tent camp project created at New Halem Creek Campground with tents and army tents and Coleman stoves and propane, with volunteers running the program with one employee. So that was a pretty awesome time. From that, we created a summer program called Mountain Camp and a fall program at Baker Lake called Mountain School in the fall. So that program grew. That one-year job at NC turned quickly into 8 fast-paced years. Thanks to the NCI teamwork with Saul at the helm, we created a great environmental education organization, and hopefully with a scaffold that our originators, our founders put into this, that it will thrive for many years to come. I want to thank Saul for his many good years of working at NCI. Hard work done well feels good. Happy retirement, Saul. Hands up. Haishka.
Hi, I'm Sybil Sanford, and I'm a longtime supporter of the North Cascades Institute. So here's my direct message to Saul. First of all, happy retirement, and I wish you all the best. And I'm so glad you're going to be able to write more poetry and go hiking and kayaking and traveling with Shelley. And Saul, your leadership and vision over many years at NCI have so inspired me. And I feel that your legacy is truly amazing. You're such a clear example of how one person can have a huge impact on the larger community and the common good. And I can't imagine a more important legacy for our collective well-being and for the future of the planet. So I appreciate all you have done, and I want to thank you and Shelley for your wonderful friendship. It means so much to me. Thank you.
This is John Horner. I've been a friend of Saul since Antioch College in 1974. I have a direct message for you, Saul. You've done an amazing job teaching children and adults about this beautiful, mind-boggling earth. You've helped thousands discover their inner child. And you've led by example. Bravo on a career well done. But now it's time to set aside these childish tools. You're about to graduate into true adulthood. Now, Saul, don't you fret. I can fix you up with all the gear you're going to need in your next life. I can do it, good buddy. This right here, looking you straight in the eye, is your next life. Come on, dude. Let's go.
Hello from Pennsylvania. This is Mary Nowicki Sullivan with Samantha, Hannah, and Chris. And I knew Saul from my days at NCI as a graduate student and then an employee. I was a member of Cohort 1 with the residency with Western Washington University. And Saul, I just want to thank you and let you know I'll always remember your generosity of your advice, your time, your energy, whether we were meeting up in the parking lot or REI for a graduate and student trip, whether we were eating lunch on the Skagit River on a canoe trip, or later on when I worked in the office and in the park with you. So we just hope you have a very beautiful, well-deserved retirement, and you get lots of great time with family and friends. And thank you again for all your advice, both professionally and personally, about work-life balance and how to make it all work while making a commitment to helping our communities be stronger. Thank you so much for everything. You've been awesome. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Take care. Bye-bye.
My name is Glenn Nelson, and I know Saul from my work with the Trail Posse, which is a nonprofit journalism project around race in the outdoors. Saul, I remember meeting you for the first time at a Mountaineers event. Our mutual friend, Paul Bannock, had been talking up how important it was that you and I met. And it was just a short interaction, but the next time I saw you, you not only remembered me, you remembered that we had met, And that's always stayed with me and impressed me. You and I did a big thing with people of color that is still very memorable for all who are involved. But mostly I got from you is a bunch of support and love and an ear. And at North Cascades Institute, a safe haven in a park that's not especially known for being inclusive. And I thank you for that and wish you well in your retirement.
Hey, Brad Tuninga here, current board member for the Institute and past grad student, graduated in 2005 with cohort 3. I just want to say, Saul, you've always been an inspiration to me. As a nonprofit professional, as a naturalist, as just a human being, you truly are amazing. And the legacy you leave with the Institute and all your work and the relationships you built is just inspiring. I want to say congratulations, and I wish you all the best in retirement.
Hey Saul, congratulations on your retirement. I'm so grateful I've gotten to know you and so thankful for all the work that you've done, not just for North Cascades, but for the entire RELC community. Tonight, I'm raising a glass in your honor. Cheers and congratulations.
Hi, Saul. Congratulations on your retirement. Phil Fenner here with North Cascades Conservation Council. And for your retirement, I wish you lots of time in your canoe and lots of time on the trail. Hopefully we can meet up and do some of that together. Okay, Saul, congratulations, and we'll see you out there.
Congratulations, Saul!
That was fun. Fun
Wow.
tributes.
Yeah.
As the Institute expanded programming to school students, we were offered an incredible opportunity that led to the creation of the North Cascades Environmental Learning Center. This forever changed our scope of work, staff size, and ability to share the wonders of the North Cascades with more people. In 1988, the North Cascades Conservation Council approached the Institute with the idea to partner with them in proposing education as part of the federal mitigation for Seattle City Lights dams on the Skagit River. To tell that story, I welcome here in the studio Tim Manns, who was North Cascades National Park's Chief of Interpretation during the years of dreaming up this campus nestled on the shore of Diablo Lake.
Saul and friends, the road from your vision of an environmental learning center at Diablo Lake to the arrival of the first participants was long and winding. From the idea to choosing the architect to the arduous process of making the vision real, Saul, you were at the center of all of that. When we National Park Service people were first trying to figure out what it meant to work in partnership with other organizations, along came the Learning Center project to provide an intensive learning opportunity and to see how grand results can be when vision is accompanied by persistence, patience, and a willingness to go down the path together. In a phrase, Saul, that's you. A working group of 6 people, 2 each from North Cascades Institute, Seattle City Light, and North Cascades National Park, met every Wednesday for what seemed an eon, choosing an architect, working with David Hall and his staff, meeting with artists, landscape architects, interior designers, and so on. Margie Allen, a supporter of NCI from its very start, was one of the Park Service members on the team of 6. It was my good fortune to be the other. Saul, you and I had established a working relationship on earlier projects, exhibitory ideas for the North Cascades Visitor Center, the logistics of the early mountain school program. From the start, I think we recognized in each other a deep and abiding love of the natural world and a conviction that helping others establish that connection to the wider world is at the heart of what the North Cascades Institute and the national parks are about. NCI then, now, helps achieve the purpose of interpretation in the national park. Working through the issues of what the Learning Center needed to be to support the vision was not easy. At times, this 3-way partnership seemed to falter, and it looked like the center would not come to be. But time after time, you, Saul, and Bill Palak, superintendent of the park, who always believed it could be done, and Lynn Best and others from Seattle City Light found a way through. It strikes me that then and now, I've never known you to make a point of claiming ownership of the Learning Center vision or of any of your other many accomplishments. It's always been about the larger purpose, just as the center isn't about the physical plant so much as about the experiences it supports and helps make possible, connecting people to place. In the early 90s, as the Park Visitor Center at New Halem was being finished, it hadn't yet been worked out how the walls of that big central room might serve an interpretive purpose. I believe it was your idea that it should be maps. Maps so that park visitors could see where this place exists on the planet, in the region, the state, and then the big topographic model in the middle of the floor showing the immensity and complexity of the North Cascades. Saul, throughout your long and illustrious career, your work has always been about place, this place, and the possibility of being in relationship to it. Thank you, Saul. It was a gift to work with you, particularly on the Learning Center. May you have a wonderful new life in retirement.
Thank you.
Hey, Saul. I'm proud to be here and would like to say a few words about our past experiences together, which go back to 1997 when my firm and myself were hired to be architects for the North Cascades Environmental Learning Center. Through your experience and leadership and collaboration, we were able to work with the three entities, NCI, the National Park, and Seattle City Light, and to come together on the design and programming for the Learning Center, which incorporated a lot of sustainable elements that were cutting edge at the time. And I think really you and NCI were the force behind incorporating that into the Learning Center. As we well know, there was quite a long time between the initial design to when it was completed, which was like from 97 through 2005. There's way too much time to talk, or not enough time actually, to talk about all the pitfalls that happened during construction, but there were many, including fires and mudslides and contractors going bankrupt and changes in leadership at Seattle City Light and all, but it ended up working out okay. And I have to give you a lot of credit for hanging in there when it was really a lot of adverse situations happening. We always wanted a building that would sit lightly on the land and encourage outdoor learning. Basically, it's a shelter to house people, feed people, teach people, but in the end, it's a series of outdoor buildings that allow and more or less, encourage people to be outside. You've always understood that, like they always say, politics are local, and in the world we live in today, there are environmental issues all over the place, but the way to really become knowledgeable about the environment is locally, on the ground. And that's what the Learning Center has provided, and especially teaching young students. It's like tenfold what they learn, they pass on to their parents, their siblings, their grandparents, and other schoolmates. So I think that's been really hugely important. So again, thanks so much, and I wish you the best in your retirement. There are many new paths for you to go down, and you can rest assured that through your work and leadership, the baby that started as NCI is now a young adult and is quite capable of moving forward. So thanks again.
Saul, this is Lynn. Over the years, I've worked in the environmental section of Seattle City Light. And as you know, City Light's first renewal of their license, first relicensing that we worked on, it was extraordinary because it was a collaborative process between the utility and all the interveners. And one of the things that NCI and the National Park Service, the North Cascades National Park, really wanted to see was an environmental learning center. So that was included in the license. And after a really unusual set of collaborations between City Light and the National Park Service and NCI, we managed to pull this off. I can remember working with you on various projects, bringing much more diverse groups to the Learning Center, also working on the young leadership programs and how thrilling that was, and presenting some of those students to the city council and how impressed they were. And all of this is because of your work. But I think we all working together and you inspiring us to do this. We're very successful, amazingly successful. And when I think back on my career, I feel that the Environmental Learning Center is something that I'm probably most proud of. And I hope you really enjoy your retirement. And I hope we can meet in person again soon. So have a wonderful time and know that I'm thinking about you. Okay, well, bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Holly Hughes, and since 2008, I've co-led an ELC course called Sit, Walk, Write, Nature and the Practice of Presence with Kurt Holting. I still remember arriving at NCI for the first time on an October day. The aspens were shimmering gold amongst the vine maples and thinking, this is it, Shangri-La. That conviction deepened as we walked and wrote together in silence under tall Douglas firs, hiked up the trail to the waterfall with Adam, who was the naturalist then, and then spent the evening sharing our writing. How could I be so lucky to teach mindfulness and writing outdoors in this stunning wilderness and with such interesting and engaged participants? The response that first year was good, and I'm so grateful to NCI that we've offered it almost every fall since. It's definitely my favorite place to teach. Right away, I recognized Saul as a visionary leader who leads by example, hires talented naturalists and program directors, and who always has a good, if not witty, insight to share in discussions. His passion for wilderness and his commitment to training the next generation of environmental leaders was evident every direction I looked, from the sustainably designed buildings to the cozy Trillium Library, filled with books signed by an impressive roster of naturalists, writers, and artists who'd all taught together, and I'm very honored to be among them. It was when Saul was working on his Headwaters manuscript that I got to know Saul the poet. I'd offered to give him feedback, and I still remember, upon reading it, being transported by his sensual, graceful images and by poems that reveal both an attentive eye and a compassionate heart. I returned to Headwaters this weekend, thinking it might be fitting to create a short cento from some of my favorite lines. A cento is a traditional poem made up of lines from other poets, exactly as they appear without any editing. And in this case, these are all lines from Saul's poems that I've reordered as his send-off. So these are Saul's words that I'm sharing with you. Once again, like visiting friends, I walk into familiar mountains. I dream in the peaks of small birds singing deep in the forest. The years go by, and our words still walk with us into the wind. The wind leans against me, I carry its song close to my chest. The river gathers friends on its way to the sea. A deep breath tells us all we need to know. I point my paddle where I want to go. So, Saul, I suspect you're pointing your paddle many directions now. And I'm so thrilled that you and Shelley are joining us in August for the Southeast Alaska version of Sit, Walk, Write. Kurt and I are both looking forward to sharing paddles, hikes, talks, and meditation and writing time together. May the trail ahead bring you many new vistas, more poems, and the deep joy your vision has brought to so many of us over the decades.
Saul, it's Jeff Hardesty. Remember this? It's the surviving artifact of that kitchen jam session from when we all got together in Wyoming and brainstormed an early version of what later became NCI. As I recall, the main result of that get-together, besides my broken kitchenware, was great excitement coupled with the cold, hard reality of what it would be to create something out of nothing. That NCI came about at all, let alone that it became a force for conservation and a much beloved institution, is a credit to you, especially your collaborative vision and your ability to bring together all the extraordinary people that over the past 35 years have made NCI what it is today and why it's going to thrive into the future. I'm completely in awe. Congratulations, Saul. Onward.
Hi, Saul. Welcome to my backyard in Gilroy, California. It's Ruthie Porter, former adult program coordinator, and I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate everything you have done for me in my life. You've been a great mentor and friend. You've encouraged me to grow, to challenge myself, and to be bold. You gave me many opportunities to learn and grow, and now you get to learn and grow in a whole different way. Congratulations on your retirement. I beat you to it. I've been retired for a couple of years. And what I wish for you is to have time, precious time, to explore nature, to stretch your creative muscles, and to wallow in the love of friends and family. I hope to see you soon. Take care.
Saul, Jay Satz here, Northwest Youth Corps, longtime with SCA, business partner, friend, co-conspirator. I wish you well. You've inspired me over the years. We still need to have adventures together. May you have an amazing retirement full of poetry in the backcountry, good food, good friends, and lots of fun. Be well, take care, and
Saul.
Hey, Saul.
This is Brian and Debbie Peterman up in one of the trails up in the Met Howe, and we're
excited that you're going to retire, so maybe you can come play with us. And we want to tell you your motto when you retire.
You're way ahead of schedule, buddy. You're ahead of schedule every single day, all day long. Just remember that.
Hey, Saul. John DiDiego, here by the Middle Prong. And I'm education director at Tremont, and I don't remember when we met, but it was quite a while ago. And I really appreciate you. I wrote you this poem. Saul, Saul, he's not tall, but oh, his shadow is long. He has a lot to say, yet writes poems so short. Retirement, maybe, or just in for retreads, the better to get out on the road. A chapter to wrap up, yet so much more to do. Saul, thanks for the inspiration. Thanks for sticking with it. Thanks for the energy. Really appreciate you. Take care, man.
Greetings to you, Saul, and to all you other Saul admirers. I'm Julie Toomey. I worked with NCI for 10 years, beginning in 2005. I started on the front desk and in registration, and after a while I became Saul's assistant. Once Saul realized how much time he could free up to devote to his director-level duties, he was the most appreciative boss I have ever had. That appreciation for the talents and the efforts of the people you work with is my very favorite thing about the culture at NCI. It's a habit of watching people, recognizing what they do well, and then giving them the time and the encouragement to do those things. It's really good for the individuals who work there. It's really good for the organization. It's not my only thing that I appreciate about NCI, though. Saul, I see the culture there as a reflection of yours, and you are one of my favorite people ever. You both have a really strong ethical foundation. You both have a genuine appreciation for the good in everyone and in life. And you both have a strong desire to share this good with everybody. So I want to thank you, Saul, for teaching me and others how to take care of the environment, for teaching us how to take care of each other. I'm a better person for having known you. Now, I want to tell you it brings me tremendous joy to think about you out there paddling and hiking to your heart's content. Time to get out there and have fun, Mr. Weisberg. Cheers.
Wow.
Are you having fun?
I'm having fun.
Okay, good. I'm having fun. Thank you, Julie, for those heartfelt words. That was amazing. Once the Learning Center opened in 2005, the Institute entered a period of rapid growth and change. Chip Jenkins arrived as North Cascades National Park's new superintendent in 2007 with a copy of Richard Louv's book, Last Child in the Woods, in hand. Programs like the camping-based mountain school evolved in the transition to the Learning Center, and new programs like Cascades Climate Challenge, one of the precursors to our current youth leadership adventures, began. Welcome to us coming from the Grand Tetons, Chip.
Hey, Saul. I'm honored to join Saulapalooza here from the home office at Grand Teton National Park. As you may recall, I joined the NCI-NPS partnership in 2007 when I became the superintendent of the park. This was a period of just great innovation and growth, fueled in part by concerns that we all were having that we weren't doing enough to create future stewards of the North Cascades. When I arrived, NCI was going through really significant changes as they were staffing and operating the relatively new North Cascades Environmental Learning Center. The ELC is today a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year endeavor. This responsibility fundamentally reshaped NCI's mission, culture, and operations. Also at the time, Richard Louv's popular book, Last Child in the Woods, introduced the concept of nature deficit disorder and sparked a national conversation about the critical importance of connecting kids to the outdoors. Both of these trends converged with a recognition that the story of the creation of North Cascades National Park, the 2 NRAs, and the surrounding wilderness areas, along with the incredible importance of local stewardship, might actually be lost. Surveys found that there was very low recognition amongst local residents of where or even what the North Cascades are, or the role that citizens played in advocating for the creation of the park and protected areas. All of these factors led to a lot of discussion and experimentation around how we could leverage the leadership and expanding organizational capacity of NCI to grow the next generation of stewards. Saul, you led the Institute and others, including the park, to take a hard look at how effective we were all being in the ecosystem. We came up with the concept of a ladder of engagement, which we would provide young people with repeated environmental education programs throughout their schooling. Serious thought was devoted to how we could build out a more complete pathway for youth, including how we might innovate and create more capacity. You know, about this time, the National Park Foundation gave me a call and asked me about providing funding to start a program for emerging high school leaders to learn about climate change. As I talked with the Park Foundation about this grant opportunity, I had to ask him, so why are you asking us at North Cascades? And a bit sheepishly, they actually said that they had been turned down by prominent parks in the Sierras and in the Rockies. Those parks said they simply could not conceive or envision or have the capacity to develop such a program. A few minutes after I got off the phone, I was standing in the doorway of your office. Hey, Saul, what do you think about? It's how I started the conversation. It was later that you and I joked that we learned that some people got nervous when we had these conversations. In your usual thoughtful way, you started asking all the questions that you're so good at. Those questions eventually led to creating the capacity to lead to the Cascade Climate Challenge, which was one of the programs that evolved in the ongoing Youth Leadership Adventure Program and my personal favorite, the Youth Leadership Summit. Under your leadership, Saul, there are tens of thousands of people who have grown up with the NCI experience, like YLA, Mountain School, and the graduate program. These people not only know about the North Cascades, but bring the power of local stewardship to their daily lives as business owners, nonprofit leaders, parents, park rangers, and so much more, even superintendents like me. We're so lucky to have you, Saul, because you encouragement, not just raw enthusiasm, but really probing questions that help make us all better and more effective. You've also been a champion of the power of partnerships, seeing how we can all accomplish more when we work together. I'd say it's not a bad legacy. Certainly one to be proud of, and I hope one that's deeply satisfying to your soul. Thanks for all that you've done, including all that you've helped me to learn. I'm certainly a better professional in person for it. We all look forward to getting our Saulapalooza t-shirts to go with our YLC and Ski to Sea shirts too, so send those along. Thanks, Saul.
Hi, my name is Katie. I worked and played at North Cascade Institute as a graduate student in cohort 7, and then as an employee for North Cascade Institute. As a graduate student and employee, Saul was welcoming, accessible, and present. He would give his time. It didn't matter who you were and what your position was, and that did a lot for the culture at the Institute. Having this access to Saul, I admired that even as the organization grew and demands on his time got more and more, he still gave his time in this way. Always the nature nerd, it didn't matter if he was in a big meeting, if someone found a rubber boa or a 10-line beetle, it was worth stopping and taking a look and sharing what he knew about it. He knew that by sharing this place and teaching people about it, that this place and experiences we have in it would become an important part of us too. I got to spend some time with Saul on class of swinging nets in alpine meadows, looking butterflies and beetles. During those times, it's not like we ever forgot that Saul was the executive director, but in those moments we knew he was the person who was going to teach us about this really cool beetle. He valued the connections that can be made in a living classroom. Having leadership that was relatable was important because Saul did some pretty incredible things. And I don't think there's anyone out there who is not inspired by the Institute's founding story. Examples like this make you feel like if I put enough effort into something, I can do incredible things too. I still feel like the Cascades are home. Lessons, practices that I learned there have shaped my present work. When interviewing people, I sometimes ask, what do you hope your legacy will be? And yes, I did get that from Saul too. When I think about Saul's legacy, where the organization is now, the thousands of people who have taken programs, been staff, and have been inspired and changed by those experiences, I would say that's a pretty good legacy. Back in the day of doing SWOT analysis with the other staff at North Cascades, one of the things in the threats was, what happens if Saul leaves? Well, Saul, you always said that you started this because you wanted to save the world. Well, you've created a huge family, and you haven't just passed a torch, you have sent out many torches into the world. You used to quote E.B. White's line a lot that said, I arise in the morning torn between the desire to save the world and a desire to savor the world. This makes it hard to plan the day. You are a great example of someone who worked hard doing the work you thought would save the world, but you also always made time to savor the world. My hope for your retirement is that you do more savoring. We all know you will continue to stay connected and do work that inspires you. So, cheers to you, Saul. Happy wandering by canoe, boot, and pen. Cheers.
I'm Molly Hashimoto, and I've been teaching for the North Cascades Institute for, I think it must be about 15 years now, and I first met Saul when I began teaching. I love teaching for the Institute, and it's probably my favorite job of all that I've ever done as a teacher. I came up with so many great ideas for paintings and writing, teaching for the Institute, and I want to thank Saul for giving me that opportunity. I also want to thank Saul for giving me beautiful poems for the 2 books I wrote. And finally, I gave a lecture many years ago at the Institute about artists in national parks. And Saul came up to me afterwards and gave me so much great feedback and appreciated it so much. Thank you, Saul. It helped me immeasurably.
Hi everyone, my name's Colby Mitchell.
And I'm Katie Tozier.
We were both members in Cohort 11 in NCI's graduate program.
And we thought, what better way to celebrate Saul than from a canoe in a lake?
Saul, I'm so grateful that you had the opportunity and the courage to start something new, to see it through, and to care for people all along the way.
Thank you for reading us The Piece of Wild Things by Wendell Berry.
Saul, in your retirement, please indulge in all the things that bring you joy.
such as beautiful, relaxing mornings where you write your own poetry and fantastic evenings around a campfire filled with good friends, family, and wine.
Thank you, Saul.
I'm Janet Ott, and I've been working with Saul and the Institute as an organizational coach for many years. Saul, it's been an honor and a privilege to work with you. Saul, you gave birth to this amazing organization. You nurtured it through childhood and gangly adolescence, and now it's a thriving adult. It's your turn to rest. You leave an inspiring legacy. I have grown to love your commitment to NCI and its employees, your love of wildness and poetry, and your commitment to lifelong learning. May you continue to learn, grow, and thrive in this next chapter of your life.
Hi, I'm Amy Brown, and I first met Saul as a graduate student as a member of C4. I worked for the Institute for 12 years until 2018. Saul, I learned so much from you, but especially your gentle guidance and example on nonprofit management, how to identify and appreciate beetles, how to small talk with important people who have money and or influence, a really big one, and how to save the world while enjoying a slice of it at the same time. I've always considered you a mentor who brought poetry, wit, and wisdom to all of us. Your focus on always ensuring fun is part of our work culture is something I hugely valued. Congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for making the world a better place.
Wow, I'm really struck by how many different people Saul has inspired, mentored, and taught over the past 35 years. From staff and board, to graduate students, to Park Service and Forest Service partners, to environmental education leaders across the country, not to mention thousands of young people. Soon, we'll hear from Saul himself, but first we'll bring you our last poet, Tim McNulty, a special song, and our final guest tribute. And this is a good time to get your beverage of choice ready for a toast.
Saul, congratulations on a vision well lived. What excited me the most about NCI way back in the late 80s was not only that its director was a poet, but that poetry, literature, and the arts were on equal footing with science and natural history. You saw that all opened pathways into a wild and spectacular landscape. I've since taught poetry with Saul many times. This poem I'm going to read is from Heart's Pass. It's from one of those occasions, and it opens with a quote from Saul. Ground squirrels and mule deer. A naturalist's job is to pay attention. Amid the silvery shards of burned-over forest, the poets are drawn to the lush, flowering meadows along the creek. Candle-like bog orchids and soft-leaved sedge crowd the creek bank. Yellow groundsel huddles in clustered plumes. A single Indian paintbrush flares crimson against the creek shimmer, and an evening sky blue gentian invites a lumbering bumblebee. We trail along the stream like grazing deer, step across on smooth, wet stones. One anemone seed plume, mouse on a stick, leads to other wispy mice, scampering up a shallow slope. But to a resident ground squirreled clan, it is we, the naturalist poets, who incite a furious round of chatter. We don't see where we're stepping, they say, and blunder into their living rooms, scattering dishes, upsetting furniture. Hard enough around here after the fire and all, for Pete's sake. Chastened, our small party retreats down the gravel road to camp, where wine and dinner and poems await. A napping mule deer rises grudgingly and watches us pass. So thanks, Saul. I look forward to more wine and poems and ground squirrels.
Hey, Saul, this is for you, buddy. Pacific from his home in the Midwest, looking for a landscape and a life that fit him best. There he found adventures in the mountains and the streams. The North Cascades became the place where he pursued his dreams. This guy named Saul, that ain't all. Climbing all those mountains with a hand lens and a net. Coleops and lepidops were among the friends he met. Others of his buddies called themselves naturalists. They thought they could save the world by making longbird list. This guy named Saul, that ain't all. One day Saul said, we are astute, let's make ourselves an institute. I really think that folks will fund us if we teach classes about bugs and fungus. This guy named Saul, that ain't all. Years rolled by and NCI became widely known as a place where folks connected, where a wild love for wild was grown. Saul's the guy whose dream this was, and many people know it. He's a leader and a naturalist and a teacher and a poet. This guy named Saul, that ain't all. There you go, buddy. Cheers.
Hi, my name is Sally Jewell, and I have known Saul Weisberg for over 2 decades. First, when I was leading outdoor retailer REI, and then as U.S. Secretary of the Interior under President Barack Obama. And I have to say that my admiration for him has grown over the years as he has followed through on his vision for the North Cascades Institute, as he has engaged tens of thousands of people in understanding the value of public lands and the environment and the importance of ecosystems and balance, not just bringing a perspective of science, but also a perspective of arts and culture and poetry and ways to connect people not only through their head, but to their heart, to these wondrous landscapes that we are privileged to enjoy in this region. So thank you, Saul, for bringing people into their public lands, for recognizing that they're set aside not just for those with means, but for everyone. Congratulations on 35 years plus of impact so far, and best wishes in this next chapter as you immerse yourself more in nature and you continue to pass your wisdom on to the next generations who will lead this forward. Congratulations.
Wow.
Wow. Sally Jewell really sums up the impact of Saul's career, doesn't she? I want to thank all the contributors and speakers for sharing your respect, admiration, stories, memories, and poems with us tonight. And as former board member and longtime supporter Mamie Rockefeller said about Saul, you guided your morphing creation through so many sunny spots and dire straits, growing along with it and adapting as needed. Meanwhile, you kept up with your own family's changes and challenges, got outdoors yourself, and somehow still found time to become a poet. Cheers to you, Saul, and to more poetry, less administration.
Hear, hear.
And tonight, as we congratulate you, we would like to present you with a few gifts. This is an original watercolor from Molly Hashimoto of Pyramid Peak, Diablo Lake, and a paper birch. We are also commissioning a Coast Salish paddle to be made by a local carver and Swinomish tribal elder, Kevin Paul.
Oh my God.
And we'll be giving that to you later this year. Congratulations, Saul.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Jody. Wow. I know I have to say something here, and I'm a little overwhelmed. Thank you all for being here and to participate in my graduation. Graduation feels much more appropriate than retirement. You graduate after you've done something for a long time and it's been hard work and you've learned a lot, and then you get to celebrate and go on to something next. So I've been doing this work for a long time. I've been preparing for this day for over a year with my board and staff. And as I've watched and listened to all these incredibly kind and wonderful things that people have said about me, I've just been trying to listen and feel without thinking too much. Even through the distance and this virtual technology, which I certainly have a strong love-hate relationship with after the last year and a half. I want to thank all my staff and board over so many years, our partners, colleagues, and friends who have helped make this journey a success. We've been working and playing together for a long time. It's been so much fun to hear so many people mention fun, which at one point was one of our strategic goals because we just didn't want to forget. Now it's time for a new chapter and perhaps a new book. I know our friendships and adventures will continue. I am just so full of gratitude. I am grateful to all of you for your presence in my life. You have supported me. You have challenged me. You showed me how to do this work and live this life. I wish I had time to mention all of your names, each of your names individually. I am overwhelmed. I really want to call out my family, my wife Shelley, my kids Ryan and Teal, my brother Mark, and my parents Maggie, and my dad Irv, who has since passed away. They're all watching tonight, all of them in different places right now. You know this journey that we've been on together. I could not have done any of this without you. 35 years ago, Tom Fleischner and I put this small poem by Lou Welch into one of our very first catalogs. It's called Step Out Onto the Planet. Step out onto the planet. Draw a circle 100 feet round. Inside the circle there are 300 things nobody understands and maybe nobody's ever seen. How many can you find? That still seems to capture the essence of North Cascades Institute. Go outside, pay attention, learn, share, act. Mary Oliver said our work is loving the world. Now more than ever, we must find the courage to stand up to the forces that would harm the world and harm its people. The story of the Institute is a love story to a future, especially after this past year and a half, with COVID and so much unrest, mistrust, distance, lack of opportunity to go to the woods to celebrate, to heal, to grieve. We now have an incredible opportunity ahead of us. I'm grateful for the past. I really am hopeful for the future, in spite of all of the immense challenges this world is facing. As so many folks said, North Cascades Institute was built on the power of nature, place, people, relationships, and generosity. Your generosity. To me, to our staff, to our board, in so many ways that you've supported us. Our vision, our mission, and inspiration comes from this place and the people who live here. We believe that nature has intrinsic value and that intimate contact with nature throughout our lives help people lead healthy lives. We know that transformative learning, the heart of our mission, lies at the confluence of natural and cultural history, science, humanities, the arts, and adventure. We understand that everyone benefits when people have equitable access to nature and public lands for recreation and renewal. And we hope, I would say we believe, that shared experiences in nature build and strengthen the communities, all the communities that we all depend on. People have been asking me a lot, more each day, what's next? What I wrote to my board a year ago, more than a year ago, is still true. More poetry, less administration. I know that our wonderful staff and board and new executive director are eager and ready to move forward. I hope to stay affiliated and engaged with the Institute in the future, We don't know exactly what that looks like, and we are clear that we have plenty of time to figure that out. I know that there are rivers I want to paddle, there are mountains I want to climb, poems and stories I want to write. I want to do some of those things with the people that I was seeing here tonight and the people whose voices were not heard but who are listening. The essence of the Institute is still inside me. I think it will always be inside me. Go outside, pay attention, learn, share, act. What I would add now is accept change, let go of judgments, ask for help, be kind. The Institute, all these wonderful things people said, but I want to be really clear. The North Cascades Institute is not my legacy alone. It's our legacy. It's all of our legacy, and it's just beginning. So I raise this glass to all of you who have been in one way or another a part of this wonderful journey. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, I want this big paddle, and I'd like to introduce all of you to Beck Dietrich, our new executive director. I'm just going to hold this for a second. Really glad you're here. I'm grateful to our board's hard work and wisdom in selecting her as our next leader. This evening, I'm going to pass this canoe paddle. It's a very long, big canoe paddle. It's a steering paddle to Beck as she begins her own journey at North Cascades Institute. I believe rituals help us mark passages in the life of an organization as well as in our own lives. And many of you have seen or paddled the Salish Dancer, the Institute's 36-foot big canoe. It's modeled after the traditional dugout canoes of the Coast Salish people. And it carries up to 18 paddlers and is a wonderful way for staff and students to share the magic of the North Cascades. These big canoes were designed and perfected by indigenous people over hundreds of generations for travel, trade, hunting, fishing, and visiting their neighbors on the rivers and waters of the Salish Sea. The canoes were crafted by skilled elders with young workers at their sides. They were made of local materials and worked with simple tools. A canoe, like an organization, can be righted and bailed when swamped, repaired when damaged. But for the people of the Northwest Coast, the indigenous people of the Northwest Coast, the canoe is a living entity, a spiritual vessel of great respect, and I think for all of us, a metaphor for the importance of community. So I'm talking here, of course, of the community of the Institute and that culture that you have joined. To paddle a big canoe requires a community of paddlers working in harmony. Everyone has an important job to do. Everyone brings a gift to the journey, and everyone's gift is needed. In a canoe, we must pull together, listen to each other, and learn from each other. So Beck, I want to pass this paddle, which we'll be using next week on the waters of Diablo Lake in the traditional homelands of the Upper Skagit people. You came here with the skills needed for this journey. It's going to take you a while to learn how to make a big canoe dance across the waters, and you have an incredibly skilled staff, board, and enthusiastic crew ready and eager to support you. I wish you the very best. I am so excited. I think you're the right person in the right place at the right time, which is some of the things we said at the very beginning of the Institute. And I hope you have as much fun as I've had, because that's really an important part of all this. So thank you, and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Saul. And I'm going to look at you when I speak.
Okay, you can do that.
I gratefully and gladly and joyously and humbly accept this paddle, and am excited to be able to move forward with the organization, honoring the past and all the rich and deep stories that it has held, and I'm excited to move into the future with creativity and curiosity and boldness and fun and joy, and hopefully continue to expand our paddle and our canoe and our community of belonging. So thank you for all of your work, and I am excited to work with you into the future and also with all of you. Thank you.
Oh, that's great.
Well, hi everybody. My name is Sterling Claren,
and I'm the current chairman of the board for the Institute. I've been the chair for almost 3 years, and I've been on the board for nearly 11. But my knowledge of the Institute started when my wife Sandy and I became students at NCI, taking classes since about 1989 or 1990. Thus, Saul was my teacher for years before I became his boss. But remarkably, like all of you, whatever your relationship with this man has been, he's your friend, and he certainly is mine. Given all that you've heard, I will limit my comments because what more is there to say about Saul as a person, a teacher, a director, and a visionary in this field? He is simply one of a kind. And since becoming chair, I've watched Saul's progress in his decision to retire from uncertainty that he could ever leave this place to excitement in the next chapter of his life. His legacy to the Institute is that it is in excellent financial shape and it has a clear organizational vision for the future. In spite of all the problems of running the Institute through this trial by COVID, the Institute has come back strong and will go on well. With Beck and the strong support of the leadership team, we know there's an exciting future ahead, and that Saul can be reassured that this organization that he dreamed of, created, and grew will continue to do him proud. Saul, this is your life.
It's wild.
And as a farewell gift from the board, a plaque commemorating Saul's life and accomplishments is being created and will hang in the primary classroom at the Learning Center as a tribute and as a reminder into the future from whence we came. This isn't goodbye, Saul. Like many others, I'm looking forward to many happy times ahead with you. After all, I too am a retired person. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Brad Taniga, a fellow board member and the new chair of our development committee. Good night.
Hello, and thanks for staying with us to the very end. It has been great to see so many old friends, colleagues, and familiar faces. What a night this has been. My name is Brad Tuniga, and I am a new board member as well as an alum of the graduate program with Western Washington University and North Cascades Institute. Now, tonight, we've honored Saul and his vision to create, expand, and sustain North Cascades Institute. He has passed the paddle to Beck, and we are so excited for the next chapter in the Institute's history. But before we get to that, and to ensure the work of fostering environmental stewardship is strong for generations to come, the board is excited to announce the Saul Weisberg Catalyst Fund. This fund will help lead the Institute into the future while honoring Saul's legacy and his spirit of innovation, calculated risk-taking, building lasting partnerships, among so many other things. Now, our goal is to raise $200,000 to endow a fund that will support the Institute into the future. And the exciting news is that we're already halfway there with over $100,000 raised, but we obviously still have some work to do. So I invite you to join me and the Institute board by making a gift to the Saul Weisberg Catalyst Fund. Your gift will help us pilot and test new initiatives, create new programs, or expand existing ones in innovative ways. This fund really is designed to ensure the spirit in which Saul built the Institute, that it continues on. So we're putting a link to some more details and information in the chat box, and we'll follow up with an email in a few days. But for now, we want to thank you for joining us and for all you've done to support Saul and North Cascades Institute over the past 35 years. Good night.